You know, 3 years ago, um, I upgraded my review of issue 197 of the Archie Sonic book to 1080p at 60 FPS. And then I think last year or so I may have done it in 4K. I gotta go double check. But part of that review was the fact that we had two plots going on at the same time in the main story. One of them involves Sonic taking Scourge to the zone, to the no zone, if you will, to Sonic, the zone cop, his zone cop version of himself, to place him under arrest. The other that I'm going to talk about here is known as Sally's trial. That's the second plot of the main story. And this had to do with the fact that apparently Sally went against orders in a supposedly treasonous way to protect the planet, from invasion. That being from the suppression squad from Muebus, although one of the members is Fiona Fox from Mobius. But that's another story for another time, which I think we already know. Anyway, the one that basically had brought Sally to trial, basically with these accusations, these charges, was Hamlin. Hamlin, of course, was originally introduced as one of the substitute freedom fighters in the Princess Sally miniseries, and made a few appearances after that. His character trait, obviously, is he's very prideful and sort of short-tempered, hot-tempered, whatever you want to call it. And he brought Sally to trial as part of the Royal Council. He had run along with his other fellow substitute fighters in Penelope and Dylan, along with Teo's mom, Rosemary, Mina's mom, Isabel, Uncle Chuck, Rotor, like I said, Dylan, Penelope, along with Hamlin. And, you had Sally's brother, King Elias, as part of that. And basically, Hamlin had brought her to this point because he was accusing her, like I said, of treason, of going against orders. Even though Sally stated that everything she did was to help protect the planet and was at the consent somewhat of the council. And although she did bring up some good points that eventually got her out of being pretty much found guilty and sentenced to who knows how long in prison, she, along with a lot of fans, didn't know exactly the reason why Hamlin was doing this. Why, of all people, he would do this. And Hamlin made it very clear to her. Hamlin made it clear that he was upset. That the reason he ran for the Royal Council is because he wanted to help make a difference in people's lives, and that he wanted to make sure that the freedom fighters and anybody fighting on behalf of the Kingdom of Acorn and Mobius fought correctly for them. But mainly, it's because of the fact that, when you read his dialogue in this scene, he basically states to Sally that when she tells him or asks him and wonders why, because she was one of his freedom fighters, he implicitly states substitute freedom fighters trained by the best, which is her, only to be left behind time and time again. In other words, his reasoning for disdain towards Sally, disdain towards Sonic, as we see later on, and so on and so forth, is because neither one of them came up to him or Dylan or Penelope, or mostly him, and said, hey, you want to join us on this mission? You're a trained freedom fighter, you want to join us? He felt forgotten. He felt, underutilized. Like, I was trained by the very best. Why can't, and I was officially dubbed a freedom fighter, substitute that is, but still a freedom fighter, but yet I'm not given the chance to go out and prove myself as I've done in the past. And outside of the Sally miniseries, him and his team only did it like once. And that was it. But, he basically, I guess you could say, is looked at as the antagonist, the villain of, of this whole situation, of this whole Sally's trial portion of 197's main story. But when one looks at it, especially looking back, to when it first came out, and it came out when I had just moved here, I believe, around that time. Hamlin, it seemed to me that what this was setting up Hamlin for was to either make him a traitor. Not a traitor in the sense of what Silver was looking for, but a traitor nonetheless. Basically someone that would be, misled, misguided, when it came to the power he was given. And it looked like maybe they might go that way when Nagas was brought into the fold as the new king. Like maybe this is the opportunity Hamlin would need to gain more power. But it never was. And there were various examples in the moment where Hamlin, part of the council, was shown that he couldn't make a decision when needed to be right away, thus proving that the only reason he put Sally on trial was out of bitterness. He was upset, he was angry at the fact that she did not give him the time of day, by extension, the other substitute freedom fighters, the time of day to go out and prove themselves alongside those that trained them. And here's the thing, and I think I mentioned this originally in the review. Even though Hamlin, has a right to be upset that, hey, you trained me to be the very best, trained me and my fellow substitute fighters to be, ready when needed, and yet all we've ever done is sit on the sidelines. All we've ever done is sit on the sidelines and nothing more. So, one could probably understand his bitterness, but, towards that, but when you get down to it, Sally had reasons. And that reason was basically, yes, they were freedom fighters, but they were alternatives. It's kind of like, let's say, in football or any major sport, you have backup players. You have your starting team, someone goes down, you call upon your backup to come in and fill in that void. A good example is last week when the 49ers beat the Seahawks. And that was in the opening half of the game. Trey Lance went down with an injury, and Jimmy Garoppolo had to step in. Now, Jimmy was the starter the year before. Trey was the backup. This year, Trey was the starter. Jimmy was the backup. And all of a sudden, Jimmy's called upon to fill the void that Trey left behind. And that's kind of the position that Hamlin, Dylan, and Penelope were in. And Larry the Lynx, by extension, were in. They were in, they were in this situation to where basically, they would be called upon only when needed. And as far as I could tell, Dylan, Penelope, the Armadillo guy, I can't think of his name right now, were all fine with being the backup players. All fine with the idea of, hey, if you need us, we're here. If you need us to fill the void for someone, we're here. Hamlin was never obviously happy about that. His ambition, his goal was, hey, I got trained by the best, which means I'm going to be front and center when the action happens. But he never got that chance. And like I said, there have been examples and issues that followed that prove he's not the kind of person that should be in the position he is right now, and everything, because all he did was run for it because he was bitter, not just because he wanted a better life for his fellow people in the Mobius and in the kingdom of Acorn, but he wanted basically to prove, himself to be better than, what Sally had anticipated. Basically prove, hey, if I can do this great, if I can be the best at this, then why can't I be the best on the field? Why won't you call upon me to be the best? But yeah, the trial in the story was basically one that Hamlin had put Sally on mainly out of bitterness, out of anger, not understanding that, yeah, you are a freedom fighter, but, as she told the council, look, I have years of experience. Me and my friends, have years of experience dealing with, the evils of this world, trying to protect, protect the world from the evils within. We have experience. And that should have gotten across to someone like Hamlin, like, look, you are a freedom fighter, but you don't have the experience me and my friends do. So you should understand that probably better than anybody, but he doesn't. Because he felt, left behind and forgotten. And to me, that's no reason to want to run for, elective office and anything, just because you want to, as he puts out, hey, I want to make a better life for my people, and I want to make sure the people that fight for them do it the right way. You don't do that because, hey, you're angry, you're angry at the princess who trained you for not basically taking you aside and say, hey, Hamlin, you're now part of the team. Let's go and be freedom fighters together. No, you don't do that. You basically take you take that training she gave you, and you learn from it more. And you learn that, the reason you're called substitute freedom fighters is to be called into action when needed. Like that one time in an issue where they actually had to go save the freedom fighters themselves. But basically, you would think he would learn that, hey, given the title substitute freedom fighters, it means we are to, be ready when we need to be ready when called upon, basically. And again, he felt angry about that, and it showed that obviously he didn't fully understand. It's like his physical training and everything, his knowledge and training of being a freedom fighter, was complete, and he fully understood it, but there were still lessons about being a freedom fighter that he didn't understand. Like sometimes, yeah, you are a team member, but you're the one that needs to be called upon, just in case something goes wrong or something like that. So, so when I look back at this subplot in the main story, or this second plot in the main story of 197, I look at the fact that, it shows that even within, eternally within, there can be power will corrupt people. And that power will corrupt people based on their bitterness, that bitterness and anger they have towards others that they once looked up to and thought they could trust, but not understanding that that person has their best intentions in mind, when it comes to being a freedom fighter. That they need to understand, hey, don't expect us to say, hey, now that you're substitute freedom fighters or freedom fighters, come join us on missions, because there are some missions that they may not be ready for, and they still have to learn and train for. That's, why he was never called upon. Or something. But yeah, I look at the fact that this also, like I said, had the potential to do more. I think, when you look at Hamlin, he definitely went into that candidacy of one of the traders Silver was looking for, but of course that got ixnayed later on. But he was still looked at early on as a potential traitor, to the kingdom because of the power, the position of power he was in. And then when you add Nagas taking over the throne later on, it really amped up that suspicion even more so of him being a traitor, or at least one of the traitors to the cause, basically because he's corrupted by power. And it looked like that's what they were heading towards too. He was, even with Nagas not becoming king, it looked like there was a storyline being set to where, in my opinion, Hamlin was going to get corrupted by power, and the end result was he'd be dismissed from the council and maybe dismissed from the kingdom of Acorn, and as a result, he would join, Eggman's side, just to get revenge, at the Freedom Fighters, at Sally, at Sonic, and so on. It's kind of like how people look at the Jackrabbit guy of the Sandblast Freedom Fighters, and how they're not actually freedom fighters in the sense that they, in the true sense that they should be. And they look at this guy as someone that would have been more suited of switching sides with Beauregard Robot, and Beauregard being the leader of the freedom fighters, and Jackrabbit being, an egg boss for, for Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik. And it would have made more sense. Honestly, it would. And I think there were plans for that eventually to happen in the future had what behind the scenes occurred. Not occurred, I should say. But yeah, I definitely look at the fact that there was potential with the Hamlin, bitterness in the story towards Sally and, and everything. And this trial, I think, was, to me, the setting point. It was like the setup point, the foundation build point, if you will, of something maybe potentially more coming out, to where I think eventually he probably would have been deemed a traitor because he would have gotten corrupted with power, maybe banished, banished, exiled from the kingdom because, he let his bitterness corrupt him in his power and all that. And, maybe as a result, like I said, he ends up joining Eggman to get revenge. We don't know. The possibilities were there, and I think had things aligned a certain way, like to me they could have, when you look back at that story, I think we could have had something good on our hands. So yeah, again, the potential was there and everything, had things aligned a certain way, like I think they were going to, despite what other people may say, even those working on the comic, in my opinion. But let me know what your thoughts were. What were your thoughts when this trial portion of 197 happened? How did you feel about it? What did you think of Hamlin, being the instigator of this, the catalyst of this, basically the villain, the antagonist of this, and doing it basically out of bitterness, not just running for office, but basically trying to put Sally away for something that she was doing that was, the right thing to do, that was the more justified thing to do for the planet. What were your thoughts overall on that? And where do you think it could have led? Do you think it would have led to him, being corrupted by power and then being banished, from the kingdom because of that and joining up with Eggman? What are your thoughts? Comment below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Super chat, super stickers are on during the live chat, and super thanks after the premiere. Check me out on my BW Roses Discussions podcast and all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora, and at patreon.com at BW Roses, and at my Teespring store as well. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you later, but, give me your thoughts. Let me know how you feel about it. And until next time, I'm out.